Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to 50 Hertz. It's all about techno. My name's MC Stretch, I'm an old person. Likes to talk on the microphone. Okay, it's all about keep it simple with our next guest speaker. Please welcome JSPR.
Well, hi, I am Jasper, JSPR, and you might know me from my work on labels such as Minus, Sidetack, Elevate, Alianza, Orange Recordings, and a few other labels. And I'm going to talk to you about one of my tracks which has just been released on Orange Recordings. It's called Turnpike. Some of you might know it because Adam Bayer played it at Time Warp in 2017, last year. Also at Loveland and a few other occasions. And yeah, the reason why I am choosing this track is because it's a very simple track. It hasn't got a lot of plugins, it hasn't got a lot of extra VSTs and stuff. So it's quite an easy track to understand. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I see a lot of beginning producers working with a lot of extra VSTs. Everyone has the ability to get some amazing plugins nowadays. So as a beginner, I think it's more important to take a look on how you produce a track and keeping it a little bit simple for yourself so you can adjust your workflow as you progress as a musician. I also don't have the luxury to spend all of my days in the studio since I have a full-time job. So for me, it's also important to keep it simple and keep my workflow flowing. So let's take a look at the track. As you can see, the track has not a lot of stuff going on. As you can see, there's one normal channel, a sidechain channel, and 5 different groups. And I'll explain to you every group in a single way, but first let's have a listen to the track itself. Well, that's a little preview of it, so let's get stuck in. The first channel is actually the kick and the bass. Well, it's not a channel, it's a group. It's quite easy to see. The first things first, the kick drum. It's actually from a sample pack I bought at Beatport, and I don't have a lot of things going on. As you can see, we can only see the spectrum in which wave or in which frequency the kick drum is flowing in. So nothing was transposed. It's just an easy kick, which I like, from a sample pack bought for 20 euros at Beatport. And the only thing I did do, that's the second kick, was give it a little top layer to give a little bit of more of a punch to the kick. And what I did was filter out the low frequencies and put a little bit of compression on the kick, so it gives you a little bit more of a punchiness. As you can see, a lot of the low end has been filtered out. And the third thing in this group is the bass. And of course, with techno music, it's all about the bass. The bass is actually quite simple as well. The thing is, it's actually a tom sound and transposed to the lowest frequencies that it has. And let's have a little listen to it. As you can see, the tom bass is in a sampler, pitch it low, put a little amp on it. This is just a prefabricated amp from Ableton itself, so it hasn't got any spectacular plugins on it as well. And just your typical EQing, which gives you the view that it's playing in the frequency range, which isn't in the range of the kick drum. Let's have a little listen to it again. and of course some sidechain compression. And sidechain compression is to make sure that the bass won't interfere in the kick drum spectrum. Otherwise, it will get a little bit messy. And to give you a clear view on how I made the bass sound and how simple it is to make this bass sound, I'm going to demonstrate you on how the bass line is made onto octaves higher. Yeah, it's quite simple, I think. So a logical question would be, where do I sidechain from? So the kick drum is the one I need to sidechain from, but the kick drum has actually got a lot of tail. So if I would put a sidechain on it, then the compressor wouldn't do fully its job. So what I did was create a sidechain channel, which was made with operator, and it's not on the track, so you can't hear it, but it's more or less a fake kick channel to adjust the sidechain on. So yeah, that's the kick drum and the bass sound. And now let's get to the drum channel. And the first thing about my drum channel is that I use the machine as a sample pack, or a really big sample pack with the hardware itself. And the first thing we are going to see is the hi-hat, which is a little bit panned out to the left. So if we put everything in the center of every channel, or if we put every sound in the center, then the mix wouldn't be flowing as well. So one little tip, especially with drums, pan out your hi-hats, the grooves, the snares, and the claps to certain points within the mix, so you get a better mix overview. So the hi-hat, and as you can hear, it's a typical 909 hi-hat, and the only thing I did was, after the offbeat hi-hat on the second and on the fourth, put another hi-hat on it with a little bit less velocity, so it gives you a little groove on it. Okay, and then take a look at the groove. Well, since I like to work with samples, and sometimes I buy a few samples from Beatport, sometimes I get it from other locations such as Splice. This groove is actually from one of the sample packs I bought on Beatport. As you can see, I filtered out the low end of the channel, since every sound almost has a lot of low end, this channel as well, but I filtered it out. So let's have a little listen. And as you can hear as well, I put a little sidechain compression on the groove, so you can make sure that it doesn't interfere with any kick drums. And also, the sidechain is from my sidechain bus over here. And the same is actually with the clap. The clap is also from a sample pack, and didn't do a lot of stuff on it, no extra plugins, and yeah. It's really that simple, and I don't think I transposed it, but sometimes I do transpose the clap so it makes a little bit of a better sound, or fits a little bit. What I did do is, as you can see over here on the track delay, the track delay makes sure your sounds go a little bit earlier or a little bit later. And if you're working with groovy stuff, you don't want to be on the grids, so your sounds could be a little bit before or off the grid. I like to work with my hi-hats before the grid, and I adjust it on track delays, and my snares or my claps also a little bit before the grid, so it gives you that little bit of funkiness. And the side snares is also a standard stuff from Machine. and also it's not that big a deal. The only thing I did was adjust the, I adjusted the decay, so yeah, it has a little bit of more of a groove on it. The next part is the rides. I like to use the 909 rides, yeah, because it has that nice crunchy sound. And I'm going to show you a little trick what I do with the 909 rides, so it flows out and it doesn't end abruptly. Oh, sorry about that. So as you can hear, the last part of the 909 rides was, yeah, it was faded out in a beautiful way. And the thing how I did it was I programmed the 909 ride on one of my returns. And one of my returns is a reverb which is fully decayed, fully wet, and with a little bit of EQing on it, so there isn't any high or any low frequencies on it, which gives you the, yeah, space that it deserves. And after this, the snare roll for when the kick drops back in out of the break. Sorry about that again. And as you can hear, I did exactly the same thing what I do with my rides, with the snare roll, to give it an extra dimension. Also, the snare is your typical 909 snare with not a lot of compression or anything on it. I got it from computer music from, now let me guess, 5-6 years ago, from a sample pack which was in the magazine and was created by Vince Watson, who makes excellent music, by the way. So these are the drums. Let's take a little look on the effects side. And with effects, I like to work with rides or cymbals to create a nice atmosphere. And actually, these samples were taken from a website which is called Splice. I don't know if anyone has heard of Splice, but it's actually a really nice program. Splice is a program which is a big database of samples, and for 10 euros or such per month, you can download 100 samples and gives you the ability to, yeah, progress a lot more with the samples you can get. So I'm gonna give you a little view on what I do with this. One moment. So this gives you a little mystic atmosphere. There's still a lot of low end going on, and I filtered out just as much that I needed, that it wouldn't interfere with the bass sound and the kick drum. So as you can hear, it gives you that mystic environment that you want in the track. And now the bubble sound. Yeah, it sounds a little tacky, but it's actually one of the things that gives this track its, yeah, its, how should I call it, its spice or its flavor. It gives you that deep sea feeling. Just a little listen to it. Is it good? So these bubble sounds, yeah, there's nothing a lot of going on. It's also from the same sample pack, or no, wait, it's from another sample pack that I bought. And the only thing I did was give it a ping pong delay. Nothing fancy, nothing shabby with another delay, just your regular ping pong delay and a little bit of sidechain compression so that it wouldn't interfere with the sounds of my kick drum and my bass sounds. Okay. Now, the most interesting part of the track, which is the synth sound. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of a view on what the synth sounds are, since there's a lot of going on in here. Just a little preview for you now. So first things first, my first synthesizer is actually the Silent. I like to use the Silent for numerous years. I also like to work in the box. I like to work with operator or analog. Ableton 10 has now got a new synthesizer which I haven't been able to discover yet, but yeah, I think I'm going to work with that as well. But the reason why I choose the Silent is that it's quite an easy plugin to master with, and also there's a lot of presets coming up everywhere. So it is actually a good format for you to use. And the first synth that you hear and as you can see, it's in a 3/4 note. And the reason why I do this is to give that little bit of a craziness in the track and to keep it a little bit of grid. And as you can see, the first synth is panned out. The first one is on the left, the first one is fully on the right, nothing is in the middle. And the reason is actually the same reason why I used to pan out drums. Because if I put everything in the middle, everything will get stuck in the middle. If I pan one synth onto the left side, pan one synth to the right side, it will give you the full spectrum, and you won't have to layer extra. You won't even have to work with extra VSTs to give you the same effect. It's just a simple solution for yourself to give you that full sound in synthesizers. And the other sound which I'm going to listen to you is, I call it the second synth, the bee sound, which sounds like a swarm of bees coming all over you. And the reason, and if we have a little listen to it, we can hear it's just 2 notes in a simple way. And now I put the filter delay off so you can hear how simple this synth sound is. Wait. With a little bit of reverb on it. It's quite your average synth sound with the Silent, but what makes it that B kind of sound is the filter delay. And also this filter delay is just a standard preset in Ableton, so I adjusted it a little so it sounds good, but this is actually the way how it sounds in the mix. Nothing really that shabby or, really difficult to master yourself. Well, that's my humble opinion, though. The 4 sound is actually the same synthesizer as the Silent, or the first synth. It's a synthesizer called the Silent. And it's the same preset, and the preset was actually made by myself. And it's let's take a look. It's one saw synth, one, the other synth is a sinus wave, and the same goes for the other two envelopes. So that's also not really difficult to understand. And on the third synth, I put a little bit of more of envelope on the synth, so it gives you a nice texture on it. Played a few notes as well. And then adjusted the notes. And what I do use is I envelope the filters a lot. So it plays around during the track, as you can see throughout the track. If I just let you see on how the envelopes are working, everything plays in a different way. Everyone has its time to shine within the mix. So the third or the last synth sound is a Mook sound. And the Mook is actually one of the main sounds you create for bass. But what I like to use the Mook sound for is to give it a little bit, a little bit of crunch, a little bit of raw, edgy synth sound to the track, and it'll give something extra to the track, nice blow to it. Let's have a little listen. So I've EQ'd a lot of the low end out of the track, and it has a reason to it. If I don't do this, then the track or the sound will have a lot of bass on it. Just have a little listen to it without the EQ out of it. That's a lot of bass. So these are the sounds that I use on this track. And as you can see, it's quite easy organized. I have everything located in groups, so it gives me a good workflow. And this is not the reason, or the main reason I work this way is because it gives me a good overview. I didn't do this just for you so it makes a clear view for yourself. No, I always work in groups. I put the drums in its place, I put the kick and the bass in its place, the synths, the effects, and some other stuff in its own group. So it gives me the best feel or the best workflow so I can arrange the track. The other reason why I like to work with groups is to give me a good view on my mix. As you can see here, I have a full view of the 5 frequencies which is going on in every place. And sometimes I see a lot of young producers work their way up to every channel to the top end, and eventually some of the sounds will go into red, which is not a really good way. So what I'd like to do on mixing my tracks is to work with something called gain staging. And gain staging is actually lowering the volumes of every channel so you can get a better view on how the mix is flowing. As you can see, on every group, I put a utility on. And the utility is not a limiter, it's just an easy way to lower the levels of the group. So as you can see, every group has -7 lowered in volume, except for the kick and the bass, which has -5. And the reason why I do this is because the kick and the bass is the thing that drives the dance floor eventually, and it has to pop out. The thing I also see with a lot of young producers is that they mix their drums and their synthesizers way too high, and the kick and the bass drop to a point where you can't even listen to it. So also a little other few tips on what I do. I put my kick and a bass in another compressor, in another return. If I demonstrate to you why, you'll know. Let's put the volume back up. I do this to make sure that people on the dance floor give that little bit of a crunchiness to the groups that I'm working with, so it has a little bit of extra flavor. So, yeah, I think that's almost about it then. Wait a minute, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's about it, so.
Well, that's about as simple as we can make it.
It's quite simple. And yeah, is there anyone who has a question for me?
Don't be shy. Anyone questions?
Please don't be shy, yes.
One second.
I'm curious, if you start, when you're creating your first track, or your about the first start, do you start with the part which is the most pumping, or do you really start like building it up? Or?
Oh, that's a good question. It depends. Sometimes I usually start with synthesizers, and I usually like to start with making melodies, since that's the most tricky thing in my workflow. Being creative with the certain type of music that I'm making is to get that catchy synthesizer or that catchy sound. So I like to work at focusing myself on something that is catchy in the track and build my track around that. And I know how to work with the kick drum, and I know which type of bass sound I would like. Would I like a rolling bass sound with it, or just put a really big, bad kick drum on it? That all comes a little later. The first thing is, for me, where do I put the catchiness in? Is that in a synthesizer, or is that in a vocal, or an acid sound? I work from there.
So with regards to BPM, you wouldn't even focus on BPM yet? You just kind of play something?
Not really. If I feel that something is working on an aggressive matter, like if I have an acid track and I put a little big or a big bass sound or a big kick drum on it, I will automatically adjust my BPM towards it, so it gives it that dynamic feel.
And in this project, you've only got one plugin, which is the silent, right?
No, I also work with the machine.
Oh yeah.
And just to give you a little view. And I also have the hardware of the machine back home, but I have to adjust it to Ableton 10, so I didn't bring it along for now. So, did I answer your question? Yeah? Okay, excellent. Does anyone else? Yeah. Excellent.
When you work with the machine in Ableton,
yeah.
What's your workflow? Do you do everything on the machine and then record it to Ableton, or just move the MIDI and take the separate?
Good question.
Yeah.
My machine is automatically, when I open up Live, I have 8 different, 8 type of channels. And every channel is located in the machine, and I outed the signal out to Ableton Live. So if I work with this channel, it's automatically programmed in machine in the first channel from machine itself. So I put in the high-hand sound, and also I can adjust every time if I want a different sound to it. So I don't have to re-record stuff. Okay, more questions?
Yes, sir.
If you sidechain your bass with your kick, why would you then also EQ the low end out of your bass? You would think that it's already out of the way?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Just to be sure. Yeah, it's a good question, because I sidechain the bass out of it, as we can see over here. So my kick drum and my bass sound isn't anywhere near it. But what I did, also the reason why I did is next to be sure of it, because the kick drum, as you can see, has a lot of tail. So it will eventually, sooner or later, interfere in the bass sound. So because I EQ'd it, it won't even interfere in a way. So it has its flowing parameters if we just take a look on it. As you can see, here's the kick. Wait. Well, bass sound, please work. Good morning, everyone. As you can see, here's the kick drum, here's the bass. Nothing is intervening with each other. Did I answer the question?
Thank you.
No problem.
How does the sidechain sound soloed?
The sidechain.
Yeah.
It actually is on the lowest note in Ableton, so it doesn't sound like anything. It's actually, yeah, it's nothing.
Can I hear it?
Sure.
It really is nothing.
So that's why it's also not in my mix, because if I would take a look in the master channel, if I would put a spectrum on it, one moment just to make sure that that's clear. If I would put it back on, then everything. Got it. So as you can see here, this is my kick drum, this is my bass sound, this is the sidechain. It won't, yeah, it's something that's not, it shouldn't be in there.
It's below human hearing.
Yes, it's below human hearing, and we can't even feel this. Yeah. More questions? Yes, we have two, one over there, one over there.
I got a question. Why did you use not the sense only button for the sidechain? So why did you play the sidechain?
Why did I play the sidechain just yet?
Yeah, no, but you can also set that they play only the MIDI. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just with the sense only.
I could do that as well.
Okay.
But it's something I am used to working with. I'm a creature of habit. Just put it that way. And this is something that works for me. And yeah, I could do a lot of other stuff on how to put a sidechain compressor on the bass sound. But yeah, it's just, I'm a creature of habit, so that's the way how I like to work. And just to be clear to all of you guys, this is not the way you should work. You should find your own way in working with your DAW and just create your own, be your own creature of habit. He has another question.
So it doesn't matter the sound, so it's no different from the sound, or when you use this and this, and it's the same at the end?
It's the same in all my tracks. I always put one channel and make it a sidechain channel because I don't know which kick drum I'm going to use during the track. It could be another kick drum with a lot more of tail, so it would, yeah, it wouldn't make sense to put a sidechain compression on it.
You mentioned earlier your gain controls in your mixing. Do you do that throughout construction, or will you kind of leave that towards the end of your project and then kind of go with your gain controls and do your mixing at the end of your project?
I usually start, I usually do it during my track itself. Yeah, as I am always working in groups, I always put a utility standard on -7. And eventually...
For the whole group?
Yeah, on the whole group, as you can see over here. I put everything typically on -7, except for the bass and the drum. I adjusted it to -5. I actually had my effect sounds a lot higher. And if you listen to the first recording of the track, it was a little bit higher because I wanted to have that extra flow going on. But the mastering engineer said that it was too loud for the track to get the perfect mix out of it. So I adjusted it to -7 again.
Any more questions for Jasper?
So you talked about your way of working with your synths. Can you maybe explain also a little bit more about your arrangement techniques and your idea, how you're working, starting with one synth sound and then continuing with another one?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Sorry.
You keep apologizing for that, but it sounds like a banger.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you as well. This is the first time that I'm doing a tutorial or anything near it, so please bear with me with this. Yeah, on how I arrange my track, it's also something personal, I think. I really like to work to make the track interesting. I always put a little bit of a synth sound in the beginning, so the first minute of the track is still interesting. It has to be DJable, since the first minute, nothing is really going on since everyone is mixing it in. But still, I want something in it. Also, on the end of the track, I also put a little bit of few of the synths in it, so it's a little bit interesting to mix out of. So it gives you the complete sense of a complete track, a complete story. And eventually, I don't have your typical arrangement idea of there is where I need to put my first break, there is where I need to put my second break, I need to get my third break on. It always flows in a different manner in my way, but I also always want to make a story throughout the whole track, so it would be interesting to listen from the first minute to the 6 or 7 minute. Did I answer your question? Yeah? Okay, good.
Do you use reference tracks?
Barely. Barely. I think a reference track is something you should work with, especially as a beginning producer. It will give you a clear view on how to record a track or how to arrange a track and give you the same type of energy. But yeah, it would be a little bit painting by numbers for me. So I don't usually like to do that. But sure, I think that's an okay way to work with.
If you keep it that simple, how do you avoid the phasing problems, like with your Mook sounds and your really low bass sounds that you have pound left and right? Mm-hmm. But if you keep it that simple, how do you avoid the phasing problems?
That's a really good question. I work in several ways. First thing is the first thing I do is I listen really closely, and if there's a phasing problem, I would hear it automatically on my speakers and on the sub. I have a big subwoofer in my studio, which my neighbors aren't way too happy with, but hey, we are all producers here, so yeah, we know this, this complaint. And so if there's any phasing problem, I would hear it automatically in my sounds. So, and then I can adjust it. But actually, with this track, I barely got into phasing problems. So it hasn't occurred to me just yet, so that's why I'm a little bit dumbstruck about your question, because it didn't matter to me in this way. So, and if there was a phasing problem, I would hear it quite soon, and I would adjust it automatically. Okay? Is that a good question?
So you need a bigger subwoofer.
Answer?
You need a bigger subwoofer for the neighbours. Yeah. Any more questions for Jasper?
Did you do anything special regarding the key of the kick?
No. No, as you can see.
Do you make a point of not bothering with that, or?
I'm not bothered, no,
Yeah.
no. Since the quality of samples, if you purchase samples, the quality is always quite good. And this one was just on the top of the shelf, and I put it in, and I worked throughout there. What I do like to do when I don't find a sample that is fit for the track, I also like to work with Kick 2. Some of you might have heard of it. It's a plugin, it's a synthesized plugin which only develops kicks, and then I would put it in the ground node, and then it will be fine. Did I answer the question?
The reason why I ask is that I think it's recommended that the key of the kick should match the main key of your master track.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked.
Okay, no, but that's also something I agree with you, and I didn't fully, how should I say it?
Maar Nederlands.
Hm?
Doe maar Nederlands.
No, English would be okay with me as well. I didn't think about it while making the track to put it in the same ground note. Nowadays, when I'm working with kick 1, or kick 2, sorry, I put it always on the ground note, so it gives me the better clear view on making the track fully, without any false notes in it. Yeah?
Good question.
Good, really good question.
Anybody
Yes,
else?
all of them are good questions, by the way. Any questions
Any more
left?
questions for Jasper? Oh, there you have it. Are you going to hang around for some brain picking?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to hang around so people can pick your brains for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
No problem.
Can you please make some noise for JSPR?
Thank you.